So we have the introduction. So you read the case study, which is about Rolls-Royce, and they're getting rid of 2,600 workers. So therefore, what it's implying is that this is the end of UK manufacturing. So in your head, you're going to go, well, okay, that's what they said here, but I know in the big picture that there's lots of foreign direct investment coming into the UK. The government is really keen on manufacturing, and DICE has just invested £1 billion. So therefore, it looks as if in the long term, that the UK does have a future, but of course it needs to be able to adapt to the new global marketplace, which is very, very, very competitive. But let's assume that it can do this, then it has a chance of survival. So just because Rolls-Royce is retrenching in terms of the UK, it doesn't mean that all firms should retrench from the UK. So we've got some evidence here: Nissan, Dyson, AstraZeneca, Tata JLR's just invested £800 million into Wolverhampton. In fact, that's a really good example because they've invested £800 million in terms of building the Range Rover Evoque, but they've also pulled out Tata Steel because of the rise in energy prices. So there is arguments that some firms are leaving and that some firms are coming back. And if we look at the textile industry, which has been decimated by globalization, some textile firms are now coming back to the UK. So for example, M&S is now producing its own clothes within the UK, and there are certain advantages to that. The UK customers think that's more ethical. It's much quicker to get your fashion out in time. So the UK probably does have a long-term future. And then, so you've done the intro, you've talked about the case study, and now you're thinking, right, intro, and now go for and against, but also not to forget the conclusion at the end. And in your mind right now, you should be thinking, well, the UK does have a future in long-term manufacturing if the following things happen. Okay? So, introduction, done, we're on our way. Okay, so on here we are now into the guts of the essay. Remember the introduction, we must mention the case study and also in the conclusion as well. And now we've got to talk about arguments for and against. Ideally, if you could think of 2 arguments for and 2 arguments against. Why? Because, well, all examiners are told that that candidates are expected to use the case study in the introduction, and they're also expected to use the case study in the conclusion. So get into the habit about it. And when I get on to the conclusion, you should be writing about three quarters of a side on that particular aspect of the course. Right, so for and against. Well, all these firms can't be wrong, can they? Dyson can't be wrong, Nissan can't be wrong, Toyota can't be wrong, Tata can't be wrong. They've all decided to come to the UK. Why have they decided to come to the UK? You can give all those reasons. In the long term, we've got labour market flexibility. The energy situation may well be solved by shale gas. The Boston Consulting Report says that the UK is a rising regional star. It's got a great environment for business. And on top of that, also in the future, because the government is so keen on business, because it realises that we must export our way out of this particular recession, we've got low interest rates, we've got low exchange rates, we've got corporation tax rates of 20%. And also the UK is really good in terms of its branding. So we've also got a good reputation of world-class engineers. We've also got some great universities. So if we can take advantage of all of these things, of course, the UK has their future. Against that, of course, how the hell do we compete with the Far East? Right, they can just get much more cheaply. They've also got millions of engineers in China. They're very, very keen on their manufacturing sector. How do we compete with Sony? How do we compete with South Korea? Right. And at the same time, we've also got a shortage of talent within the UK. We've got rising energy costs. Tata Steel has just left because of those particular factors. So there are arguments against that. However, when we get to the conclusion, we sort of know in our own minds, because of what we've been taught on the course, that actually manufacturing does have a chance in the UK, even though the manufacturing sector has fallen from 10 to 22% of GDP. Primarily, that will depend upon the UK doing various things, like taking advantage of the mega trends, and also with the right support from the government. Now, you also want to try and get good application and good analysis in here, and I suggest you really want to try and get it within one paragraph. Now, it may be the case that you can get it within this sector here, where we can combine all of the government data to say that long-term manufacturing has in fact got a good chance. Low interest rates, cheaper to borrow money, and cheaper to borrow money, therefore firms will invest more money, which will create more innovation and better products. And on top of this, we have low corporation tax, which also means that firms keep more of their profits, therefore firms are more likely to take risks, therefore firms are more likely to innovate. And on top of that, if we have the right skills coming into firms because the government's got a great apprenticeship scheme, then that may produce a more productive workforce. If you have higher productivity, then this will help to reduce costs. And if you combine all of these factors together, including a low exchange rate and including the massive growth in the BRIC countries, that the UK can then take advantage of this with their lower export prices from the exchange rate. Now, that is a really, really good paragraph. It's really good in terms of analysis. Now, we're probably going to get the good application if we continue to mention firms that have moved to the UK because of those factors. So you can always think also in your essay, right, I must get some really good analysis in there as well, right? Don't just be descriptive in terms of what you say. Then you're going to get a great essay. Thank you. Yeah, we are just on the conclusion part of this essay, and the essay is, in your opinion, in the long term, will firms remain competitive if they continue to locate most of their operations in the UK? Now, if you can remember what I said at the start is, the first thing is you read the case study and you make sure within the introduction you talk about the actual case study. And then you do the for and against part. And then you must have a really good conclusion. Now, you probably should be spending about 15 minutes on your conclusion, which is about 3/4 of a side of written work to a side. And this is really, really important, because what happens is, for a lot of candidates, take an average candidate, they get 16 out of 26 on the first part of the essay, and then they get 4 out of 14 on the next part. So you end up with 20 out of 40, and they end up with a grade D, and they're a little bit upset. However, if you write a really good conclusion, remember you can still get application and also analysis within the conclusion, that you may get, say, 10 out of 14. What I'm not going to show you is how you get 14 out of 14. But if you get 10, then suddenly up to 26, and you're up to a grade B. So instead of getting 55 out of 100, you're suddenly getting 75 out of 100. Now, you must follow certain rules for that. One of them is you've got to talk about the case study again. You've got to say, well, just because Rolls-Royce is retrenched in terms of the UK and they've lost a lot of workers, it has been the case that a lot of firms have come to the UK. Now, that really gives you a perfect opportunity to talk about all the foreign direct investment that's come into the UK. Now, there must be a reason why all of that money's come into the UK, and that is because these companies believe that the UK has a future. So we've got Nissan, Toyota, Tata, JLR, which employs 60,000 people in the UK, Siemens and DuPont. Now, they've all come to the UK because they believe it has a future, and according to the Boston Consulting Group, we could well become a rising regional star because we've got a really flexible labour market, as said by the Fraser Institute from Canada. But also, we do okay on all of the main variables. And if we sort out the shale gas or the cost of energy, then the UK is going to be a favoured destination, certainly a favoured destination for foreign direct investment. So these are all of these companies on here. But there are also some British companies. Dyson has just invested £1 billion in terms of the UK. A lot of textile firms, Marks and Spencer's, has brought back its operations to the UK simply because it's quicker to get your product to market if it's actually produced in the UK, and it also makes communication easier. So some of the textiles firms have started to come back to the UK, and also AstraZeneca and GSK, the pharmaceutical giants, have also invested lots of money into the UK. So it may well be the case that a lot of firms will base themselves in the UK because the UK may well become a rising regional star, but then they may also decide to invest abroad because there is a trend towards manufacturing firms being closer to their markets because they want to be able to respond more quickly to the consumer, because the consumer in Asia, for example, is going to be different from the European consumer. So it may be the case, like JCB, that they have a factory in the UK, but then they also have a factory in India because they've also got a lot of demand out there. And the same with textiles. So they may decide to produce abroad, but they may decide to also produce in the UK. Now, finally, of course, also, if we believe in all the mega trends, And the UK can take advantage of these mega trends, nanotechnology, 3D printing, which will reduce labour costs and allow firms to innovate much more quickly. And if the government follows all of its policies, which are very friendly towards it, and maybe continues to reduce corporation tax, which has gone down from 28 to 20%, if we add in all these factors together, and the fact that we've got 3% growth in the UK, so therefore there's enough demand, so firms will continue to innovate, then it may well be the case that the UK is still a favoured destination. Now, I've just done this, I've just realised I've just filmed all of this 20 minutes ago and I didn't turn the microphone on. I have on this one. So I've just wasted all this time. So the second time that I've done this. However, right, let's get the process right. So you read the case study, you summarise the case study, number one. Number two is you think of arguments for and against, probably two on both sides. And number three, you write this really great conclusion, which is going to be 3/4 to a side. Don't do as a lot of students think, a lot of students do. Yes, and they'll write, yes, it's good to have, yes, the UK will be okay in the long term because we've got a flexible labour market and our costs are quite good and we're quite productive. So therefore, for example, Nissan has invested into the UK. That's a really weak conclusion. That's probably worth 2 or 3 out of 14. What I'm asking you to do is to suggest that, yes, it is pretty good. There's evidence in there, lots of firms, good application. And if we can combine all of these factors together, it depends upon, particularly on the mega trends, KPMG reports, particularly what the government does, and particularly if firms innovate, then the UK in the long term can become a powerhouse, which is actually borne out by the Boston Consulting Report that says that the UK could well become a rising regional star. Can you see how much better that sounds than the bog standard, oh, I have given it a conclusion? So even if you don't write very much, so those students only write 2 sides, and there are some students like that, still write 3/4 of a side for your conclusion. Okay? Because you could get good application and good evaluation all in your conclusion, and the examiner will like it because that is how they are taught to mark. Okay? Thank you.